Welcome back to Bay Area Housewife of True Crime. We are at part 3 of the Casey Anthony case. As a reminder, topics may be triggering. Viewer and listener discretion is strongly advised. The people mentioned are innocent until proven guilty in court. At around 8 p.m., Cindy drove to the Orlando Police Department located at 6207 Pershing Ave only to find it closed. Cindy then makes 3 calls to 911. The first 911 call was placed at 8:08 p.m. wherein Cindy reported that a 22-year-old had been stealing from her. When the operator asked when it occurred, she said, "Oh, it's been happening." They arrived at the Anthony residence at 8:44 p.m. and Cindy overheard Casey tell Lee that Kaylee had been missing for 31 days. That prompted the second 911 call where Cindy reported Kaylee missing. On the third 911 call at 9:47 p.m., Cindy reported that it smelled like a dead body in the car. Deputy Adriana Acevedo arrived at the Anthony residence at 9:52 p.m. At 11 p.m., Cindy called Amy and told her that Kaylee had been missing for a month. Amy told Cindy about her drained bank account and missing checks. When Cindy asked Casey about this, she admitted it was true in front of the deputies. At 11:38 p.m., Amy made a post saying, "A person who I thought was my friend stole money one night while I was sleeping and made up a story about how I got up in my sleep and put the money away from my trip I was going on. I got back today. It was a great trip. I bought that. She's my friend, but after today, I know it was her. I let her use my car while I was gone and my checkbook was in there. Account cleared out. Hopefully I'll be able to get that back. But yeah, overall about $1,000, which isn't even the worst. For me it is. Apparently her kid has been missing for a month. She claims the nanny stole her and was too afraid to tell her mom. So as bad as all this is, there is a little girl out there, hopefully, that I'm way worried about. Anyways, how are you?" At 11:50 p.m., Deputy Adriana Acevedo and Casey leave Hope Spring Drive. Casey leads them to where she dropped Kaylee off at the Sawgrass apartment, supposedly. This was where Zanny the nanny supposedly lived. A woman named Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez was her name. She met her through her job at Universal Studios, you see. She used to babysit her other coworker, and she's been babysitting Kaylee as of late. Casey even knew her mother's name was Gloria. What a long Tuesday, because it's now Wednesday, July 16th at 12:05 a.m. when Casey and Deputy Adriana Acevedo get to the Sawgrass apartments and Casey points to apartment 210. At 4:11 a.m., Detective Yuri Melik, he was working in the missing person and child abuse cases. Casey gives him the whole the nanny spiel and tells him that part of her was naive enough to think she could handle it on her own, and how she even went to places like Fusion Ultra Lounge and other bars in Orlando where she knew Zanny would hang out. From about 5 a.m. to 7 a.m., Casey leads Detective Melik to 3 different places where she knew Zenaida to live. Detective Melik soon found out that no one named Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez lived at any of these locations. In fact, the apartment where Casey said she lived had been vacant for 142 days. After Detective Melik dropped Casey off back at the Anthony residence, he went to Universal Studios where he learned that Casey had been fired in April of 2006, a whole 2 years earlier, after Casey failed to return to work after her maternity leave. At around 11:30 a.m., Detective Melik and Sergeant John Allen and Detective Appy Wells pick up Casey and head over to Universal Studios so she can show them where she worked. When they got to the gate, the security would not let them in because she did not have her employee badge or ID. Casey insisted that she could take detectives to her office, so they show the security guard their badges and are let in. According to Detective Melick's report, she walked with purpose and acted like she knew where she was going. She even went as far as saying, "Hi, how you doing?" to the other real Universal Studios employees that they passed. They got to an end of a hallway when Casey turns around and fessed up that she actually did not work there. This confession incited the detectives right then and there to borrow a conference room from Universal Studios for a second interview with Casey. At 4:30 p.m., the Orange County, Florida Sheriff's Department arrested Casey Anthony on child neglect, false statements, and obstruction of justice charges. The next day, on July 17th, Casey was arraigned in court, and the judge denied her bail. Also on this day, bloodhounds tracked the scent of human remains in the trunk of Casey's car and in the Anthony's backyard. Specifically, police canines hit near Kaylee's playhouse in the backyard. Not a dry eye was in the trial room on the day everyone in the courtroom saw pictures of Kaylee's playhouse in her grandparents' backyard. They even included her own little mailbox. On July 18, 2008, by the recommendation of other inmates, Casey hired criminal defense attorney Jose Baez. This would be his first-degree murder case and his first death penalty case. Everyone underestimated Jose Baez. Never, and I mean never, underestimate a member of a minority, especially in the United States of America. Originally from Puerto Rico, his single mother raised him and his sisters in the Bronx and South Florida. Jose Baez is one of the 5% of Latinx lawyers in America. When Casey was taken in for questioning, investigators failed to provide her with her Miranda warning, a right all American citizens hold named after the U.S. Supreme Court decision Miranda v. Arizona in 1966 that ruled that when you are detained for questioning by police, they have to tell you that you have the right to remain silent, anything you do or say can be used against you in a court of law, and that you have the right to an attorney. If you can't afford one can be provided to you. One of the first things detectives asked Casey was if she used drugs, alcohol, or had been to a mental hospital. When Casey's July 16, 2008 arrest drew attention to the public, Fox News sent out Mark Fuhrman to take Jose Baez out to lunch for the scoop on the story. Mark Fuhrman gained notoriety after his part in the O.J. Simpson trial. In 1996, Mark pleaded no contest to felony perjury after lying at O.J.'s trial when he said he had not expressed racial slurs when in fact he had, and they even had him on tape doing so. Since he had become one of 10 former Los Angeles police officers that had been declared ineligible for rehiring, Fox News hired Mark, which I think sounds about white. At this time, Jose Baez was a law professor at Florida UNM, a historically black college. Jose had also been in law school himself when the O.J. trial played out on television. He was obsessed with the case, so when Mark Fuhrman asked him to lunch, he immediately said yes. While at lunch, Jose decided to shoot his shot and ask Mark to come to a lecture. Mark seemed elated by the attention and gladly accepted. When Mark Fuhrman, a widely known racist, got to a class of mostly black students, he got ripped to shreds. And I would love to see a video of that played out.